Good evening and good to have you with us on this edition of The Last Word. We've got two very interesting conversations lined up for you, the citizen of this country. A month after the hefty fines were imposed, what's the status? Has it been a good deterrent? What about the states who haven't followed? That will be our second debate. First up, let's focus on what happened in Mumbai last evening. Now, while we don't know, in this case of mysterious gas leak, as many were calling it, what really went on? What I do want to focus tonight is the response of our authorities and if that was up to the mark. Now, let me first tell you what really transpired last evening. In fact, even now there are reports coming in that many people are getting a similar foul smell in various parts of Mumbai. But last evening at 8 o'clock, the first initial set of reports of a possible gas leak in Wadala in Mumbai emerged. 45 minutes later, the Civic Body of Mumbai, BMC, said that yes, they have received the complaints regarding gas leaks. Then BMC went on to tell our reporters that the gas leak was actually at the Rashtriya Chemical Fertiliser in Chembur and that it was a small issue that had now been plugged. The leak had been constrained. But that didn't stop the problem. At about 9 p.m., a strong smell of gas, or that's what most people identified it with, was reported in Chembur and Deonar. By 9:30, RCF, the chemical fertilizer plant that BMC said was the one which had the problem, came out and said there is no gas leak at their plant in Chembur. By about 10 p.m., strong smell of gas was being reported in Goregaon, in Powai. So it was literally moving from the eastern part of the city through the suburbs to the western side. By 10:30 p.m., fire department confirmed that they had received complaints from multiple areas across the suburbs of Mumbai. But we still had no idea 2 hours on what was going on. Then at about 11 p.m., finally Mahanagar Gas gave its first statement. They said there is no leak from our pipes, but we are still checking. More and more complaints were being received from Kandivali, from Andheri, even all the way to Bhandup. We didn't know what was going on. And we were told 9 fire engines have been mobilized across the city to try and find this leak. At about midnight, finally BMC retracted its first statement. Remember the first statement when they said that the leak was at RCF? They retracted it and then they said we are looking out for what's gone wrong and what is happening. At 12:30 a.m., because Virenau constantly followed this story last evening, the BMC chief told us that they suspect that a vehicle carrying liquid petroleum gas or LPG perhaps had a leak, and because it traveled through the city, that's why in many areas you could smell it. In the morning, by around 9:40, we were told no gas leak has been found and operations have been called off. Now reports begin to emerge again. If it wasn't a gas leak, then it was definitely some other, perhaps a weather phenomena. We don't know what. But there is no denying the fact that yesterday there was a bit of panic among citizens. They were looking for information. They were calling up their gas agencies. They were looking towards the civic authority, towards the state government, and there wasn't much to be offered in the first 4 hours between 8 p.m. and midnight. So the question, I guess, that we are asking tonight is Mumbai really ready to handle a disaster? What if it was truly a disaster that was unfolding? What if it was truly a chemical leak, a chemical spill, or even a chemical attack, a terror attack that was unfolding? Is Mumbai really ready for it? And I'll tell you why I have this fear. Because in the initial 3 to 4 hours, the authorities were clueless last night. BMC reacted only after the media began to highlight these stories which were doing the rounds on social media. BMC then claimed that the gas leak had been plugged and then later on backtracked. We still don't know what has happened 24 hours later. And you know what? For a city which is the size of Mumbai, we only have one HAZMAT van, the hazardous material van. That's job is to detect such leaks. That's job is to help the fire department firefight in disastrous scenarios. We have only one that was used for the first time last evening. Does that really show a good amount of preparation? That's the basic question I'm asking. Let's say good evening to our panelists. Mr. Pratap Kargupikar, former Chief Fire Officer, joining me in our studios right now. Shivraj Pandit, Chamber Welfare Brigade. Dr. Anjali Quatra, DG for Center for Disaster Safety, and Professor Santosh Kumar, National Institute of Disaster Management, also with me. Actually, I want to go across to Shivraj Pandit first. Shivraj, you're part of the Chamber Welfare Brigade. Now, Chamber, for most people who may not know, outside Mumbai is an area that is uniquely placed in Mumbai. It is surrounded by refineries and factories and container plants on one end. It has a huge dumping ground on the other hand in Deonar. So it's literally a place where we are used to toxic fumes constantly. But something yesterday was different.
Good evening. I'll introduce myself. My name is Shivraj Pandit and I have a NGO in Chembur. It's called Chembur Welfare Brigade. And where citizens of Chembur, they have tried to do better for the community where they stay in. As you said earlier, yesterday's gas leak, it was triggered, and when you mentioned that it started at around about 8:15, 8:30 p.m. It started at Vadala.
Yes.
If you see, Vadala is just behind the refineries, the Rashtriya Chemical Fertilizer Refinery, which is in 254 hectares area. The backside of Vadala, which is now also called as New Cuff Parade.
Yes.
It's situated there. So the development is done by the Lodha recently. These people felt the trigger that is on the rear side of the RCF, and where I stay, I am born and brought up in Chembur, and we stay in Chembur. The Chembur area, the population itself is more than 6.5 lakhs. So Chembur is surrounded by many factories like this. RCF is not the only thing.
Correct.
RCF is there, BPCL is there, HPCL is there. There is a big international company called Aegis and Sea Lord.
Yes.
Which stores lots of toxic materials.
Yes.
And I have the entire list of it, and they are so hazardous and toxic.
Shivraj, let me ask you, what was the reaction between you and the rest of the residents in that area when you got the foul smell yesterday, which was different from what we usually get in Chembur?
Ma'am, this foul smell we have been smelling since we were children, but now the impact was so high, and there have been cases, many cases, where in our NGO group, people have been forwarding these messages, and they've been calling us, they've been telling us they are feeling like vomiting. Some asthmatic patients who are not able to breathe. And what about the senior citizens, those who have been staying there? They were breathless. I would like to highlight this point. As you said, only 9 fire engines were deployed in Mumbai. See, and as you said, the commissioner of Mumbai, he said that it might be a vehicle which was carrying a gas, toxic gas, and it must be moving in different parts of Mumbai. So isn't it like a triggered bomb which is ready to explode?
But we don't know actually, Shivraj, because till now no clarity has been given to us by any of the authorities of what's gone on and what's gone wrong. And if it's happening for second straight day, then perhaps it's not a gas leak, but it is definitely a problem of either toxic fumes or some other phenomena. Now, but I want to go across to our experts and also ask them this question. Mr. Pratap, tell me, do you think the response that we saw yesterday was appropriate if indeed there was a gas leak that was being reported all the way from Vadala to Andheri and Borivali? 9 engines and 1 hazmat van, could that have done any good?
Firstly, let me explain what is the correct procedure for this particular gas leak part of it, especially when it spreads in a longer area. It's very important that the HAZMAT has some equipment which can definitely analyze the gas, the concentration of the gas, yes. But this particular one van is not going to give us a correct figure, because the spread of particular gas which was unknown gas. But again, I would like to emphasize on this particular thing. If you have done Mumbai HAZOF studies and then risk analysis regarding the various chemicals, various gases are stored, manufactured, or transported, all those aspect part of it, especially from Mahul area.
Yes.
We'll have to understand the gas leaks, especially the C4 gases which come up is flammable one, which are transported to this particular lorries to the extent of say about 25 tons to 30, 40 tons. That is possible subject to again, this particular the gas is basically the propane, butane part of it, which are generally transported in a large bulk part of it. If they leak, the chances of leakage is not there because there is no mercaptan added to this particular thing. So chances of smell,
we can't smell
detecting,
it.
yes, very difficult.
Yeah.
But another important point what I'm giving is particularly we said RCF, and then we said the particular Devla dumping ground, and then subsequently it went to the western side also.
Yes.
The point is we'll have to have monitor all the particular atmospheric conditions. Then only we'll know whether there's an inversion conditions part of it. There are some gases which have been collected up, and due to the IMD, basically cloud variations which may take place, and then they settle down and come down.
Right.
Right. That's a possibility because the area what everyone is talking of is a large, huge area.
Right. Fair enough.
Confined.
So that is something that they need to look at. We don't know. The government hasn't come out and said anything all day long today. It's the India's financial capital. Something mysterious has gone on. It could be toxic fumes. It could be damaging people's health right now as we speak. And there is absolutely no response from the government right now. What's going on? But Mr. Pratap, before I go across to our other two panelists, I wanted to ask you this. For the first 4 hours, there was no communication. The BMC said the gas leak has been plugged. It was at Rashtriya fertiliser, and then they went back and said, no, it wasn't. And we are still looking for it. And in the morning, they said, we haven't found anything. Now, does this seem like a city which is actually ready to take on if a disaster happens tomorrow?
A simple answer. We need many HAZMAT vans throughout eastern, western, and central Mumbai. All are disaster basically regions which are being divided into 6 regions.
Right.
Right. All these should have this particular so that detect the gas, what are the effects of the gas, and whether it's flammable, non-flammable, toxic, non-toxic. All those things are required to be analyzed at one go.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's what this van does. This hazardous material detection van is actually equipped with a lot of equipment inside. And Mumbai got its first one in the month of February. Last night was the first time we actually used it, the hazardous material apparatus van. Now, it actually has special, fire suits for the firemen, but it actually helps you in combating chemical fires. It helps you in combating chemical spills. It could even help you detect, some kind of a chemical or gas leak, or even if there is a nuclear leak which has happened in the area. So this is how essential this one particular van is. And in all of Mumbai, there is only one. Only one. Can you imagine that? Let me go across to 2 of our other panelists.
Before that, I would like to analyze one. Whether all these fire engines which were deployed, they did not have any sensors, gas detectors.
And
they didn't have?
Yes.
And if
so I don't know what those fire engines were waiting for. Did they expect that because there's a gas leak, there could be an explosion and then they will have to rush to put out the fire? I mean, there was a tweet which came out last night that said that the Mumbai police has been deployed. Now, that's good if the police is out there, but somebody has to be checking what is happening on ground and telling people what to do at that point of time, and no such reaction. No such reaction. And I'm sure that it's not just the problem of Mumbai, it's exactly what have happened in any other metro or any other town of our country. And imagine after the 2009-8 terror attack, if we still don't have a quick response system in place, then what have we learned in 10 years? Professor Santosh, what's your view? Are we failing miserably when it comes to disaster preparedness?
Look, we need to see this particular situation very holistically. As you very rightly mentioned, that it's not only for Mumbai but across the country. So how that after this Bhopal gas tragedy, how we have been over the years able to develop ourselves, capacity have been improved definitely in terms of natural disasters. But when it comes to the addressing issues like this in the gas leakages, and you are reporting that 4 hours, 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock, nobody was knowing that what is going on and what is the leakages. The first and foremost thing regarding this early warning system in the case of gas leakages, it is depending on that identification and dissemination of information, and then coming to the end in terms of the de-warning. So here you are pointing out that all the three was not there. So that this kind of a situation creates allows to create panic, and that panic we have learned this. The smallest warning could have been there if that was not there. From Bhopal gas tragedy, that learning, even if you are not able to decipher or identify what is there going on, that the wet towel should be put on the nose and the mouth, so that you can still filter those things and you can go and survive for some time. The idea is to not get affected by the gas.
Right.
So even if you are not able to identify, what I'm saying is minimum kind of a precautions could have been taken. Second point which I would like to mention here, that in such cases, this is the responsibility of the PSUs or the industries which is operating in the locale, what kind of a community preparedness they are doing in terms of the likelihood of disaster.
Right.
If they are operating on a normal situation, it's fine. But if in case it goes wrong, there is a system that if you have an industry, you have an on-site plan, and it goes out of hand, that it should be supported by the off-site plan, that with the local government.
Okay.
So on-site and off-site plan should commensurate with each other. So these kind of a minimum requirement for addressing these kind of issues.
Okay.
Especially I'm referring to in terms of Bhopal gas tragedy. So what you are saying in terms of that one HAZMAT van moved from that, in Mumbai, or for that matter any big cities, the density of population is very, very high.
Correct.
That we have to remember. Even if it happens to 1 square kilometer, it will affect large number of people. So that cannot be negated. And so local municipal corporations, not necessarily that everything comes from that. Local municipal council corporations,
right,
that have to be strengthened for this kind of a preparedness. And so entire urban governance, where the industry is operating, industrial and the urban people, that should be that should actually come forward for making citizen prepared.
Well, frankly, I don't even know why these industries are functioning in the middle of the city, in the middle of a residential area. There are people living in those homes, and Shivraj Pandit is one of them, where the fumes are constantly coming through your windows. You step out, you are constantly inhaling it. You're surrounded by refineries, you're surrounded by chemical fertilizer factories in the middle of the city. These factories should be outside. Now, if actually that is where it began from, the foul smell, and then spread across the city, then the government needs to seriously look at these factories and their existence within the city. But let me go across to Dr. Quatra. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Quatra. There was a very interesting comment that our defense minister made today. He was at an event and he was speaking about combating chemical and biological threats. And he said that the country's forces are deployed in many regions where adversaries may resort to chemical or biological attacks. This is Rajnath Singh saying this today. Use of chemical, biological weapons may jeopardize life, health, property and commerce. The damage can take a long time to recover. The government knows that this is a possibility. But are we as a country ready to respond if something like this happens?
He's right in saying that, looking at the terrorism scenario of the whole world, the chemical attack cannot be ruled out, and the kind of preparedness that is needed for it, on one hand to prevent it, and the other in terms of response, it is not adequate in our country and in many other countries as well. Actually, in case of a chemical disaster, whether by accident or by malicious act, it is a very complicated situation. The whole act of anticipating it or even to how to handle the devastating consequences. It is a very difficult and complex situation. And for that, a very holistic approach is needed for prevention, especially surveillance, monitoring, detection systems, and high technology, and also protective equipment. All that needs to be there in good numbers in the stock, as well as the other end of the response forces being immediately ready and acting. In this case, we did not see much of this also. There need to be standard operating procedures for, like the state disaster response force or the police force, and even the first responders in terms of medical first
here
responders.
is my problem, Dr. Quatra.
Even the civil defense.
There should already be, there are, right? I mean, I am hoping that we have these standard operating procedures. I'm hoping that on an annual basis in our big states and cities, people are undergoing training, that people are being provided that special training where they know how you have to respond, what you have to do, and how you have to handle the situation. Now, I guess that's what I want to understand from you. Is there a lot more that we have to do on that front?
Well, yes, a lot more is to be needed, and the other end, we also need the community. They should be sensitized, and they should be made aware of the risks, and they themselves should also come forward for their safety preparedness. And looking at their response, I don't think any of them was even aware of the consequences that could have happened. The minimum that can be done is at least, within their houses, they could have gone into the interior rooms, sealed their windows and doors or any other inlets, and put off the exhausts and air conditioners so that they are not exposed to the gas if it was poisonous. And their whole response didn't show any of that kind of knowledge or awareness. Coming to know that there are so many industries around, and still educated citizens are not participating. I think we should not just leave it all to the government, because it's our own safety, and we need, we as an NGO, we are always sensitizing people to this fact that a large-scale disaster can only be handled properly if the citizens themselves are concerned about their safety and are taking active role. Otherwise, the problem will be multiplying manifold.
Right.
I would like to intervene.
Not a solution to the problem.
Okay, Dr. Quatra, I have Shivraj Pandit who wants to come in and respond to what you are saying also.
Yeah,
yes.
what doctor said, I would like to intervene, and I would like to say this. Born and brought up in Chembur, I am 52 years old. In this 52 years, there hasn't been a single mock drill or any evacuation system in case of disaster carried out by any of these companies. Even the BMC is not equipped for that. As you said, after the gas leak yesterday, police were sent to see the cause for where it is. Are the police trained to see whether it was a gas leak or it was due to the toxic fumes came from where? Your BMC has washed off their hands. The disaster management cell, the chief, Mr. Mahesh Narvekar, he said he got only 29 emergency calls, 29 calls on his emergency line, that is 1916. Do you think so? The entire Mumbai was triggered and only there would have been 29 calls?
Right. No, actually, they did say that they got a lot more later on as well. A lot of complaints came in, over 100 complaints came in and people didn't know what was happening, which is understandable. Perhaps the government still doesn't know what is happening, but you have to have an effective communication strategy with the citizens of the city. There were individual societies last night that were shutting down their own gas connections because they didn't know if it was their own gas leak, a gas leak in the area, or something else that was going wrong. That is the point. Professor Santosh, you wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please, before I wrap this up.
I want to make a point in this.
Yeah, just I wanted to convey that there's like the National Disaster Response Force.
Right.
They have a capability for identification and also responding to such kind of a disaster. So this could have been utilized very well at the time of, if the delay in the identification, and also their being there could also be utilized for the capacity building and the pre-disaster scenario. So what drawing lessons from what we say way forward, this happened, and we should relook into that what went wrong and start preparing citizen and the local forces for tackling such kind of a disaster, which it happens in future as well. As one of the panelists is saying, that is a large number of in chamber, large number of industries are there, and for 52 years nothing has been done with that.
Correct.
So this is the time to wake up, and it's a kind of a wake up call for the future.
Correct, absolutely. Go ahead, Mr. Pratap, you wanted to say something.
We'll have to understand two things. The Honorable Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has said very correctly, the nuclear, biological and chemical warfare, no, it may be in a small quantity or it may be in a larger quantity. And a very important point is that this can be possible at any level part of it. You have the meteorological department also plays an important role, because the wind velocity which caused about lakh and more people in Bhopal, had these people had gone to the other side of the particular gas cloud, probably they must have saved. So these important things which are required to be disseminated to each and every citizen, what to do in case of this particular gas leak, how to save yourself first, right? That is more important. And then now we don't have any deterrence as such basically, but the fact is that NBC, nuclear, biological and chemical warfare is going to be there. That's another level of warfare which is going to happen in most of the countries.
Yeah, I just wanted one more question. I have one more question for you. So, for a city like Mumbai, roughly how many HAZMATs and upgraded fire engines with those sensors that you're talking about would we need?
At least I would suggest that basically all the 6 divisions which what Mumbai Fire Brigade has got, basically command centers, what you call it, they should have this particular equipment, HAZMAT van. So also sensors, basically gas detectors and others, you should have with all fire engines. These are simple equipments. They'll give you proper reading. They will also give analyze the detector, gas require basically physical and chemical properties also.
Right. So none of that has happened, and I want to just highlight this point. A 2009 report on management of chemical disasters by the Indian Disaster Management Authority, the NDMA, they highlighted extensive gaps in the ability of our country to prevent and respond to chemical terrorism disasters. Now, this is 1 year after we had that massive terror attack. Obviously, it wasn't a chemical or a bio warfare kind of an attack, but Mumbai in 2008 got a wake-up call in the way our authorities, our response agencies have to react when the city is, under attack. And I believe that if a similar one, but on a chemical front, was unfolding last night, then we would have been in big trouble. Because the authorities, the civic agency, the government, the gas limited, the other PSUs which are functional, there was absolutely no response. And since this report came out, which said that there is absence of standard risk and vulnerability assessment plan, that we are inadequate both in quality and quantity of HAZMAT vehicles and teams, that we have inadequate number of skilled and trained manpower at various levels, including identified institutes, research developments and training centers, that there is lack of data on potential targets. Dr. Quatra, has any of this changed? In 10 years, have we managed to at least make 2 of our cities compliant and ready for this kind of a disaster or a terror attack?
There has been continuous upgradation in terms of technology for detection, monitoring, and even in terms of surveillance. But then, as I said earlier, it's a very complex situation. Chemical attack, as far as terrorist attack is concerned, it can actually bring result. The consequences can come out in 15 minutes, or even in 10-15 minutes. The area can be totally affected. The population there. So very quick response is needed, and for that it is very essential that the local people as well as the agencies are also fully integrated into the response mechanism. Otherwise, the consequences can be really very.
I agree with you, and the only idea and the thought behind having this conversation was to highlight that we are not ready, and we need to be. We, the citizens, and our government, our authorities, our police, our disaster relief teams, our civic bodies, we all need to be ready. There has to be some amount of coordination. Last night, what we saw was that one arm of the authorities didn't know what the other arm was saying or doing. They were obviously not even talking to each other. I don't know if Mumbai police was talking to the civic body. I don't know if the civic body was actually talking to Mahanagar Gas. They obviously were not talking to RCF because they believed there was a leak at RCF which had been plugged. And RCF came out and said, no, there has been no leak. Imagine that. Imagine the confusion if it was a genuine emergency. 24 hours later, we still don't know what was the cause of that foul smell. Is it simply because we live amidst factories and this is the kind of toxic fumes that we are now supposed to inhale? Or is there something more? Was there a truck which was leaking and managed to drive around half the city with those toxic fumes, with those inflammable gas? What went on? Why would the government even tell us? The idea of this conversation was to ask that question. Are we ready if a real disaster hits us? Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us on debate number 1. And we're going to take a very quick break. We'll be back in just 2 minutes.